Hello everybody, Chess Twins here, and today we're going to talk about the queen maneuver. The queen maneuver is basically the idea where the queen can move in multiple spots and maneuver around and possibly create some tactics to win some material. It is black to move after white plays pawn to e3, and there's a very simple tactic exemplifying the queen maneuver. Pause the video and see if you can find the correct move. You probably saw it pretty easily. The correct move is queen to a5, check. So it attacks the white king, and in addition, it also attacks the bishop. Now the bishop can't retreat because the e3 pawn is blocking, so white must block the check, and black simply scoops up the bishop. This was a basic example of the queen maneuver. Now let's look at some more complicated examples. So now we're going to take a look at a game between David Janowski, playing with the white pieces, who's a strong GM, and Akiva Rubinstein, who is also a GM, who's playing with the black pieces. And this was played in 1907. So why don't you take a moment and pause the video and assess what black's plan should be. So at first glance, this is a pretty equal game. Considering material, both players have 2 rooks and a queen, and they both have 7 pawns. However, black seems to have a little bit of initiative here, attacking the weak f3 pawn. So one idea for black is to first play queen to d8. At first glance, it might seem like the black queen is going to g5, however, black has a different plan in mind. So white plays queen g4, trying to nullify black's queen g5, otherwise this would pretty much be a drawn king and rook pawn endgame. So instead, we see black's plan in action. Black now plays queen b8. This move may seem surprising, however, if you take a moment and analyze it, you realize that the queen is coming to a7 to exploit this diagonal. Afterwards, black sees this and brings the king out of the way, and black continues with this plan and plays queen a7. So here we saw a queen maneuver. Queen d7 to d8, now to b8 to a7. So now the queen is maneuvering through a more active square on c5, and we'll see that this is very important for black to win the game. After rook fe1, white is defending his own rook and trying to potentially double up on the e-file. Black now plays queen c5. As you can see, black has a clamp on the white pawns and has control of the b4 square. So now what black's plan is to break open the queen side and use his strong replacement of the queen. On the king side, white really can't move his pawns in time. Black will seize the initiative first on the queen side. So after queen e4, centralizing the queen, now black plays queen b4, trying to infiltrate to d2, and also trying to exploit the dark squares. So now white plays rook 1e2, just defending the d2 square. And now Akiva Rubinstein consolidates. So here, although the position is equal, it's easier to play with the black pieces. Black now has a clear plan in mind, to bring his rooks over to the A and B files and to break the queen side open. Meanwhile, white's rooks are misplaced and they cannot reach the queen side conveniently. It must take them 2 moves to bring their rooks over. After queen d3, black once again is in no hurry to break open the queen side and plays king g8. Now, white offers a queen trade. So remember, in another Remote Chess Academy video, to take is a mistake. So in chess, you always want to take on your own terms. You don't want to just help white and take immediately. Instead, Akiva Rubinstein plays a5 first. He's trading on his own terms. So if white wants to trade queens, he does it as a cost. Black can now infiltrate the a file easily. So this is actually what happened in the game. After c3, b takes c3. White has managed to get rid of his doubled pawns and eliminate the intruding black queen, but he is still a full tempo away from equality. It's going to take white 1 tempo to bring his rook to the open a file. However, black is 1 tempo ahead and is able to seize this initiative. So rook a8 is important now. So now black completely controls the a file. White's position is somewhat passive, and if he allows black to lock up the queen side and penetrate the f file, his problems will become worse. So now Janowski plays a pretty dubious move, king h3. This does not really do much to stop the impending rook from infiltrating. c5 is probably recommended, trying to open up the c file and try to create play. So now black plays b6, stopping c5. Now what black does is he's shutting down white's play completely. White cannot play c5, so white has no clear plan for activity. So once again, white isn't really doing much. I guess he's trying to activate his king, but it's not warranted in this position. So now black gets ready to infiltrate. After rook b2, white decides that his position is safe and that all he needs to do is wait. f4 could have been tried, as it would try to open up the e file for play. Once again, black is in no hurry, so he can improve his king position and possibly go to g6 and to get off the back rank. After b4, Janowski finally gets things going on the queen side, but he is pretty much too late now. The damage has already been done. So now black plays queen g6, and once again white plays another dubious move. This is basically the last straw. King h3 would have good drawing chances, although rook g1 leaves white in a difficult situation. After rook f5, white plays rook c2, and now black plays rook h1. White's king is actually trapped now, and if king h3 is played, rook h5 will be played. And after the king moves to g2, this is basically checkmate. So now white has to come up with a decision now. To avoid checkmate, Janowski now has to make a concession. Now he has to play f4 to open up the f3 square. So after f4, black happily trades, tries to divert the king away from the f-pawn, and now easily wins the f-pawn. So from this point on, black is just converting his win. White's rook is completely passive on the queen side and is tied down to the c-pawn. Meanwhile, black has a kingside pawn majority and an active rook. So this is a definite win. So black's counterplay would not have happened if it weren't for this queen maneuver. Otherwise, black would try to attack this f-pawn, which could easily be defendable. And if black were to try to break open the queen side, white could easily bring his rooks over. So it was very important for black to bring his queen to c5, a more active square. The black queen went all the way from d7 to c5, which was a major improvement in black's position. This forced white to make a concession and trade on black's terms. So now black was able to gain control of the a file and completely shut down white's counterplay. And from this point on, black had no trouble winning a pawn and thereafter winning the game. So now we'll take a look at another example. It is white to move and win. Can you solve it? Feel free to pause the video. So in this puzzle, white is down 2 pawns in the queen and pawn endgame. So in this case, white should try to checkmate the black king somehow. It's white's only hope to win. So by doing so, white needs to limit the black king's square. So white can play king g6, threatening checkmate on f7, g7, and h7. So there's only one way to stop this if you're black. And black plays queen c6, pinning the queen to the king. So now the white queen cannot move because white's in a pin right now. So white should take the queen on c6. Black is forced to recapture. So now white's only hope here is to push a4. Now in this case, the king is not in time to reach this pawn. As we can see, if the king tries to hunt down the pawn by playing king f8, white can play a5, king e8, a6, king d8, a7, king c7, and white queen's just in time. Also, you can note you can use the square rule. This is the principle. So in this principle, if the king is touching or in this square, then the king can hunt down the pawn in time. This is a common trick and technique to quickly calculate if a king can hunt down the pawn in time. So now black pushes his f pawn. Now you might wonder why not black push the c pawn or the h5 pawn. Now if black pushes the h5 pawn, we can see that black is too slow. This is checkmate. Now if black pushes the h5 pawn, now note that although black promotes first, this pawn is in the way in this diagonal. So then white would queen, and this would be checkmate. Notice how unlucky black is just because the pawn is in its way. Otherwise, black would promote first and capture the queen on a if this pawn were not there. And afterwards, so now black's only option is to push the f pawn. So white pushes mini pawn race. Although black promotes first, it promotes with check. And from this position on, it's actually a mate in 10. So now the only way to prevent checkmate is to bring the queen back. So queen f8. Now it's white to move and checkmate in 9 to 10 moves. So we can take a moment and pause the video to find out a way to checkmate black. So white should try to get his queen onto the 7th rank, but also making sure that black cannot check the white king. So for example, if white were just to play queen b7, then queen d6 check, and we see an endless amount of checks. And this is a draw by repetition. So we cannot allow black to check white. And note that it's important to try to get a goal of bringing the queen onto the 7th rank in order to try to get checkmate. So queen f8 blocks. Now here we see a clever queen maneuver being played out. So here we witness a journey where the queen maneuvers from here to here, all with check. Now we'll see how white does this. So white plays queen a2 check. Obviously black cannot block, otherwise that's just a free queen. So black's only option is to move over. Now we see queen b2 check. Again, the queen can't block because that's just a free queen. So now black's only move. Now we advance the queen up the border. So we saw the queen going from a8 to a2, now to b2, up to b3. So king h8, continue maneuvering the queen. This is all forced. And queen h8, king g8, and then queen d7. So now we accomplished our goal. Notice how the queen maneuvered all the way to a2, b2, and b3, c3, c4, d4, and now d7. All these checks, all these queen checks came with checks, so black had no chance to get a perpetual against white. So now why is this d7 square important? Well, in this case, black has no effective way to stop queen h7 checkmate. Unfortunately for black, any of the queen checks, there's no help in delaying checkmate. So all black can do really is delay the checkmate after this. So black can try to delay a checkmate as long as he can. So that's eventually a checkmate. From this position on, surprisingly, black cannot do anything at all. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something about queen maneuvers today. Feel free to subscribe to Remote Chess Academy.
If you would like to improve your game, please feel free to check out the free mini course, How to Analyze Your Games. You can download the free mini course, How to Analyze Your Games, by clicking the link on the description. You can find the PGN file with the game on the Blogspot. Follow the link on the text description. Thank you.